Good day everyone! So our topic for today is all about the revised Bloom's Taxonomy of Educational Objectives. Alright, take the challenge. In this module, challenge yourself to attain the following learning outcomes. First, formulate learning outcomes to reflecting the different levels of the revised taxonomy. Second, explore the use of technology apps in applying the revised taxonomy. In our topic for today, we have Advanced Organizer. First, the original Bloom's Taxonomy. In original Bloom taxonomy, there are 6 levels of Bloom taxonomy. Second, the revised taxonomy. So they have 2 dimensions of the revised taxonomy. Third, practical guide to the revised taxonomy. Fourth, apps and the revised taxonomy or synapse straightener. But before we proceed to our topic, we have activity. So, in our activity, you need to arrange the words in the box according to the order of the old and revised taxonomy. So, ang answer is nasa box. Imuha ra na siyang i-arrange dira if asa na siya dapit. If old taxonomy ba na siya or revised taxonomy. Alright? If you are done answering our activity for today, I know you have some idea or thought about our topic today, and later we will discuss it. Okay, imagine that you are really working as a teacher. How would you feel if you entered the classroom without specific learning outcomes? And how would you proceed without clear and specific targets? Being sure about your learning outcomes will help you to facilitate learning effectively. With appropriate, clear, and specific learning outcomes, you do not need to guess nor grope in the dark on what to accomplish. So in this module, we'll present the original and the revised Bloom taxonomy of educational objectives. Although the revised taxonomy came out years ago, it is important to still present both and the old and the revised to have a complete understanding and better appreciation of the taxonomies used in education. Because, as a future educator student, it is very helpful to us to know the original and revised Bloom taxonomy of educational objectives para dili na ta maglisod kung unsaon pagbuhat og objectives kay makatabang ni siya especially sa mga teachers and students to classify and organize the objectives. And also, we will know the level of thinking of our students soon. Now, let's discuss what is Bloom taxonomy. But before that, let's read the Bloom taxonomy overview para naanatay kay idea kung unsa jud na siya. These are the Bloom taxonomy overview. In the year 1948, Benjamin Bloom and a group of psychologists studied classroom activities and goals teachers has while planning these activities. Through this study, 3 domains were concluded, which is cognitive. When we say cognitive, it is a knowledge. And also affective. When we say affective, it is emotion, attitudes, values, and interests. And when we say psychomotor domain, it is skill and movement. In cognitive domain was split into a hierarchy of 6 thinking skills, which is the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So in the year 1956, original Bloom taxonomy is published. So, let's proceed to 1995. 1995, Lauren Anderson, a former student of Benjamin Bloom, led another team of psychologists in revising the original Bloom taxonomy to represent the 21st century. So, si Lauren Anderson, muna siya ang nag-revise sa Bloom taxonomy. Changes occurred in terminology, structure, and emphasis. In the year 2001, the final revision of Bloom taxonomy was published. So later, madiscuss na to ni siya kung pila jud siya ka years nga na-revise ang Bloom taxonomy. He is Benjamin Bloom, 1913 to 1999. He was the Associate Director of the Board of Examination in the University of Chicago. They needed a way of classifying questions shared by faculty members to form a test bank. For 6 years, from 1949 to 1966, he led a group of experts to come up with a framework to classify objectives. Okay, si Benjamin Bloom, usa ni siya ka Associate Director sa Board of Examination sa University of Chicago. That's why gibuon niya ang Bloom Taxonomy because they needed a way of classifying questions nga gihatag sa iyaha sa faculty members, makauban niya dito sa faculty to form a test bank. So, una siya pagka 6 years, from 1949 to 1966, siya ang nag-lead sa grupo of expert para makam up nila ang framework to classify the objectives para dali ra nila mahibalan ang mga needs sa mga students. So, evolution and relevance. So, the taxonomy became widely used in education beyond its original intent. So, katong gibuhat ni Benjamin Bloom na taxonomy is nagamit siya widely used sa education. Now, gina-utilize na siya for curriculum planning, designing learning activities, and assessment strategies. So, ang kaning Bloom Taxonomy, pinakagamit yun siya sa educational purpose. Especially sa mga teachers, aron dali ra nila makuha ang objectives nga ilang gusto nga itudlo sila mga students. Like what I said earlier, Benjamin Bloom studied 3 domains. So, these are the 3 domains, which is the cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. When we say cognitive domain, it focuses on mental skills and knowledge acquisitions. Gina-focus niya ang knowledge sa usa ka tao. So, mao na siya ang cognitive domain. While an affective domain, it involves emotional aspects, attitudes, and values. Diri gina-focus niya ang emotional sa usa ka tao and also kung unsa yang batasan, attitudes and values. And when we say psychomotor domain, it relates to physical skills development and motor skills. So diri gina-focus niya ang usa ka skills sa usa ka tao kung unsa ang iyang lihukan. Muna siya ang psychomotor domain. Right. These are the 6 levels of thinking of all taxonomy, which is the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Then, according to the original Bloom taxonomy, the lowest order of thinking is knowledge. Why knowledge? Because knowledge is the remembering of something, and comprehension is knowing what something used kung unsa ang imong gigamit. So these tiers were used as building blocks to help the teacher's scaffold. When we say scaffold, muna siya ang nagatabang sa students. So their lessons and build students up to the top tier of thinking. What is Bloom taxonomy? When we say Bloom Taxonomy, it is a model that describes the different levels of learning outcomes that target what skills and competencies the teacher aim to develop in the learners. So, when we say Bloom Taxonomy, ina-describe niya ang different levels of learning outcomes. So, what is the target? What is your target? So, the target is the skills and competencies the teachers aim to develop. Unsa ang goal sa teacher sa iyahang mga learners or student. That's why the taxonomy is the cognitive domain contains the levels of the knowledge to evaluation. So, the 6 levels progress the simple to more complex. So, nagsugod siya sa pinakasimple hangtod sa pinakalisod of level of thinking. So, the last 3 being referred to as higher order thinking skills or HOTS. The 6 levels of thinking of Bloom taxonomy is divided into 2 groups, which is the low order of thinking skills to a high order thinking skills. So under of low order of thinking skills are the knowledge, comprehension, and application. Well, ang analysis, synthesis, and evaluation are under of high-order thinking skills. That's why that is the reason why knowledge, comprehension, and application is gibutang siya sa pinakababa because they are the lowest order of thinking skills. Then ang kaning analysis, synthesis, and evaluation is naa siya sa pinakataas because muna sila ang pinaka-lisod. It's because they are under of high-order thinking skills. When we say higher-order thinking skills or HOTS, it emphasizes on focusing on higher-order thinking rather than just memorizing. So, ginapokus niya ang mga higher-order thinking kanang mga panghuna-huna kaysa pag-memorize lang. So that's why we always hear seasoned teachers reminding us to focus on the HOTS and not just to stop at the usual memorizing and enumerating. So that's why our teachers always reminding us na we need to focus on HOTS. Dili lang ta mag-remain or mag-stay lang ta sa pag-memorize o enumerating badira sa kabutang. So, the teachers encourage teaching methods that promotes HOTS for effective learning. Ingon ani maguni siya. If you pass all levels of thinking of Bloom Taxonomy or naa na ka sa pinakataas, meaning you are more knowledgeable and also you can do it by your own without any memorizing or enumerating. It's because kabalo naman ka. First is knowledge. Si knowledge is naa siya sa pinakababa. It's because siya man ang pinakalowest. So, knowledge is to facilitate learning. We begin teaching, stating, memorizing rules, principles, or definition. So, gina-involve niya diri ang pag-recalling na facts, rules, principle, or definition. In this level, kaya ma-recall sa bata kung unsa ang mga previous topic and learning. For example, what is science? What is PE? If the student kaya niya ma-recall ang answer, and that is under of knowledge. Second is comprehension. When we say comprehension, it leads to understanding concept, rules, and principles. So in these levels, students should be able to explain or kaya niya ma-explain dili lang kay recalling or memorizing lang. Third, application. Application is a proof of comprehension of the concepts and principles must be used in real-life situation. So in this level, the knowledge of the student is kaya na niya gamiton or use ang iyahang mga naagian or experience. And also, diri na nag-end ang low-order thinking skills sa Bloom Taxonomy. Fourth, analysis. So, diri na nagsugod ang high order of thinking skills. So, analysis is for an in-depth understanding and mastery of these applied concepts, rules, and principles. These are broken down into parts. They may compare, contrast, classify, and further investigate or etc. In this level, the student is analyzing his or her learning and gina-break apart na po niya ang iyang mga na-learn. It's because they can compare and contrast and classify his or her learnings. And also, naga-research na po siya to get more informations and etc. Number 5, synthesis. Synthesis is under of higher level of thinking. Then, higher level of thinking is when the students put together elements of what has been learned in a new way. Meaning, ang estudyante is kaya na niya ma-combine or ma-connect iyang mga knowledge or learnings. And also, they can come up with holistic, complete, and more integrated, or even a new view or perspective of what was her or his learned about the topic or the discussion. 6. Evaluation. Siya ang pinakataas o pinakalas among all levels of thinking of Bloom's taxonomy. It's because in this level, the students can now assess or judge based on a set of standards on what they have learned. Meaning, the students will be able to justify or judge or rating or assessing his or her learnings or knowledge because they are in the higher of levels of thinking skills of Bloom taxonomy. Alright, those are the 6 levels of old or original Bloom's taxonomy. And now, let's proceed to the original Bloom's taxonomy, which is the cognitive domain levels under subcategories. So, the first level of the cognitive domain in the Bloom's taxonomy is knowledge. So, knowledge, it refers to a person's ability to recall and retrieve information. It's not just a simple memorization, but understanding the meaning and context of the information. Within knowledge, there are 2 subcategories. So, what are they? First, the knowledge of specifics. When we say knowledge of specifics, this refers to the knowledge of specific details, facts, and terminology. And also, it has 2 subcategories. What are they? So, the first categories of the knowledge of specific is the terminology. When we say terminology, it is the knowledge of technical terms and word meanings. Second is the specific facts. So, specific facts meaning it is a knowledge of specific facts, events, and data. Alright, let's proceed to the 1.2. 1.2, it is the knowledge of ways and means of dealing with the specifics, meaning it refers to the knowledge of the methods and processes used to understand and apply specific details. So, it has 5 categories. First is the convention. When we say conventions, it is the knowledge of customs and standards. Second is the trends and sequences. So, it is the knowledge of trends and sequences of events. And third, classification and categories, meaning it is the knowledge of classification and categories. And fourth is the criteria. When we say criteria, it is the knowledge of standards and basis for analysis. So, fifth, which is the methodology. So, when we say methodology, it is a knowledge of methods and processes. Alright, what are the use of sample verbs? So, sample verbs, it is the examples of verbs that indicate the skills used in each subcategory of knowledge. So, they provide a more concrete idea of what each level of knowledge means. For example, the verbs define, describes, and draw are related to 1.1, which is the knowledge of specifics. So, while the verbs recognize, select, and state can be used in 1.2, which is the knowledge of ways and means of dealing with the specifics. So, these verbs help to better understand the expected tasks or skills that a student should acquire at each level. Second is comprehension. So, in this level, the students demonstrate comprehension by explaining concepts in their own words, summarizing information, or drawing inferences. So, they have 3 categories. So, first is translation. Translation is a converting information from one form to another. For example, paraphrasing. So, the original text or words is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. In paraphrase, it turns to or mahimo na siyang a swift brown fox leap over a lethargic canine. Second, interpretation. When we say interpretation, it is explaining the meaning of information. So, third, extrapolation. It is predicting consequences or extending the information to new situations. So, the sample verb of comprehension is paraphrase, summarize, restate, retell, and illustrate. Third, application. In this level, students apply their knowledge and comprehensions to solve problems or create something new. So, it involves using learned information in a practical context. So, the sample verbs of this is apply, change, prepare, produce. For example, prepare. When we say prepare, it is getting something ready for use. So, for example, your teacher is giving you a task, which is giving a presentation. So, what do you need to prepare? Of course, you need to prepare a gathering materials, practicing the delivery, and preparing visual aids. Fourth, analysis. Analysis, it involves breaking down information into its component parts to understand the relationships between them. So the students identify patterns, make inference, and draw conclusion. So they have three subcategories. So first is elements. Elements is identifying the individual parts or components. Second, relationship. So relationship, it is understanding the connections between different parts. Third is organized principles. When we say organized principles, it is recognizing the underlying structure or organization of the information. So the sample verb of analysis is analyze, subdivide, take apart, investigate, compare, contrast, and infer. For example, investigate. So investigate, it is a systematically examining something to determine the facts. So, for example, an increase in crime rates. So, you need to investigate. So, what do you need to do? So, you need to do conducting research to identify the contributing factors. Number 5, synthesis. Synthesis, this level involves putting together different elements to create something new or original. It's all about combining ideas, forming conclusions, and creating something unique. And they have 3 subcategories. First is production of unique communication, meaning creating a new way of expressing ideas. Second, production of a plan or proposed set of operation, which means designing a plan or procedure. Third is derivation of a set of abstract relations, meaning creating a new framework or system of relationship. So the sample verbs is combine, organize, design, formulate. For example, organize. Organized words, I use this into a scenario. So, for example, a community group wants to host a town fair. So, the organizers organize the event, allocating tasks to volunteers, securing permits, and scheduling activities across different time slots. Okay, let's proceed to number 6, which is evaluation. Evaluation, it involves making judgment based on a criteria or standard. So, it requires critical thinking and the ability to assess the value or worth of something. So, evaluation can be based on internal evidence. For example, logic, consistency, or external evidence or facts and data. So, they have 2 subcategories. So, first, in terms of internal evidence, which means judging based on internal consistency and logic. So second is in terms of external evidence, which means judging based on external facts and data. So the sample verbs is assess, appraise, critics, judge, recommend. For example, assess. So a student assess their own performance on a recent history test, identifying areas of strength and weakness to inform future study strategy. Now, subcategories and sample verbs are very important and very useful. It's because we will be able to know what level of thinking our students are, and it gives us clear guide to teach in our students. And also, we will be able to use this as creating objectives, activities, and knowing our student level of thinking. Alright, at the end of the unit, the students will be able to enumerate the characters in the world is an apple or knowledge. So this objective assess the student ability to recall and list the characters or a fundamental aspect of knowledge. Diri kaya na nila ma-recall or ma-list down kung kinsa ang mga character dira sa story. And also, the student can be summarize the story or comprehensions because it requires the student to demonstrate understanding of the story main points. So, they must go beyond simple recall and show they grasp the narrative essence. Together with, they can apply the rules of subject-verb agreement when writing a summary of the story, and it is under of application. So, here, the students apply their grammatical knowledge or subject-verb agreement to a specific task, writing a summary because they are using their knowledge in a practical context. Now, the student can compare and contrast the qualities of the characters in the story, and it is under of analysis. It's because it requires a deeper level of understanding than simply listing their characteristics. And also, the student can write a song expressing the message or lesson of the story, and it is under of synthesis. It's because this is a creative task requiring students to synthesize their understanding of the story themes and express them in a new way or original format or a song. So, in evaluation, the student can write a critique of the author's writing styles. It because it demands a critical judgment of the author's techniques and styles. So the student must use criteria to assess the effectiveness and quality of the writing. So in conclusion, this learning plan uses Bloom's taxonomy to structure activities that progressively challenge students to engage with the story at increasingly complex cognitive levels, moving from basic recall to a higher order thinking skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluations. Alright, that's all for our discussion today. Please wait for my next video, which is a continuation of my topic, the revised Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. And always remember our quotation of the day: a good teacher makes you think even when you don't want to. Thank you everyone and have a good day. Paalam!